The title of today's lesson is entitled The Fall of a King. The Fall of a King. So where did it all start to go wrong with King David? Israel was at war with the Philistines. There was always a war. They were always at war. God did this to train each generation who had not experienced combat. In Judges 3 verse 1 it says, "These are the nations the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had previous battle experience. The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonites, the Hivites living in Lebanon, mountains from Mount Baal Hermor to Lebo Hamath. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their ancestors through Moses." So battles were a form of testing the Israelites to see if they would obey God's commands. Our equivalent today in the church would be the mission, would be evangelism, converting people, building churches, the world. This exposes whether we obey God and are spiritual or don't. Let me ask you, are you really in the battle? We talked about everybody having 10 Bible studies. With the shepherds, it's 10 shepherding appointments. To lead them, to either be in them to be trained or to actually train somebody else by allowing them to lead. You know, I got with Mark and I'm training Mark for Beijing and so I get with him Monday now because I want him to go through his hourly schedule, and this is hourly schedule. Now this is the hourly schedule after I got with him yesterday. Okay, so what I'm training, and I think I've forgotten how people don't know the basics. So he said, well, how many people did you study the Bible with this week? 1. Why? I'm so busy. I said, okay, let's get out a do-it list. So I got out his do-it list, and there's like 6 things on there. I go, well, why don't you do that? Why don't you do it now? Make the phone call now. So that was that one gone. All right, and what about make the phone call now? Well, that's one gone. So we're now down to 3. Well, I've got ICCM. That takes so much time. So I then got his schedule out, and I put 10 hours of where he could do ICCM. 9:30 to 10:30 on Monday, 9:30 to 10:30 on Tuesday, after midweek on Wednesday, 9:30 to 10:30 on Thursday, after Bible talk on Friday, 3 hours in the morning on Friday. I go, you see, there's 10 hours. I said, the issue here is you're going to have to discipline yourself to do it when you don't want to. And I said, and that's the issue. And then he's saying, well, what if my D time goes on and on and on and on? And I said, well, you need to control your D time. You need to figure out beforehand what you're going to study. They need to agree to it. You need to get out the scriptures. You need to tell them this D time is going to take an hour and a half. We're going to deal with this issue. If you just go, how are you feeling? That could go on for 400 hours. Okay. And so it's about time management. He said, well, I got with this brother in the East for 2 hours. I said, what are you doing that for? That's not your ministry. Well, I felt like I really wanted to. It's got nothing to do with you. Keep in your lane. I employ you to lead the North and to grow the North and to help them with their special. And we ripped everything out, put everything in his do-it list, either did it immediately or put it in his schedule, and we still find 35 hours free to study the Bible with people. Okay? So I don't think Mark doesn't want to be in the battle. I think Mark doesn't know how to be in the battle. And like a lot of young people, they don't use a do-it list. They don't even know what one is. Okay, and I show him mine, I show yours. I know a lot of us like Elena's, yeah, I've got one of those. It's longer than Joe's. But we've got to train our interns to do it. Some of you evangelists don't want to train your people because you don't want to do it. You don't want to deny yourself at 9:30 at night. You don't want to. But there is more than enough time to do 10 Bible studies a week. Mark's a very good-hearted guy. I don't think he's bad-hearted in it. He's underneath me. He's training it. And I would do D time on Thursday. That's not working. He doesn't know how to set up his week. Okay, so I'm not getting down on Mark. I'm showing you the training process, because every generation needs to be trained. And it's really easy as an older man to assume that Mark has picked it up like Emmanuel. But it took me 3, 4, 10, 15, 20 years to train Emmanuel. Okay, and Mark's only just been with me like the same amount of months. Okay, so carry on. It says, up until this time, David, despite being the king, always joined his people in battle. 2 Samuel 21:15. Once again, there was a battle between the Philistines and the Israelites. Once again, like we're always in the fight. David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. Yes, leadership is exhausting. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels, and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. Persecutor. But Abishai, son of Zerah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. So yes, it had gotten dangerous at times. Yet God had always rescued David. God, not man. Sometimes God rescued him through a man, but he was rescued by God. 2 Samuel 12:7, when Nathan rebukes David, it says, then Nathan said to David, you are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. Protection and victories come from God, not man. Not me as your world sector leader, not you the church leader. Victories and protection come from God. Training comes from us. Psalm 33:16. No king is saved by the size of his army. No warrior escapes by his great strength. A horse is a vain hope for deliverance. Despite all its great strength, it cannot save. But the eyes of the Lord are on those who fear him, on those whose hope is in his unfailing love, to deliver them from death and keep them alive in famine. So yet after this near escape, David's men get fearful and advise David to never go out to battle again. 2 Samuel 21:15. Then David's men swore to him, saying, never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. David then hears their fear and takes their advice to not go out to fight with them again. His good-hearted followers gave him bad advice, and he took it. Instead of trusting God, David sent out his men to fight for him and trusted in the safety of Jerusalem's walls. 1 Chronicles 19:8. On hearing this, David sent Joab out with the entire army of fighting men. When he was meant to go to war, he stayed in his comfortable and supposedly safe walled city. 2 Samuel 11:1. David, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. Yet as we will find out, this was actually the most dangerous place for David to be. At home. His home. The most dangerous place for the disciple can be their home, bedroom, office, phone in today's modern environment, or workplace, as opposed to the battlefront. Too many of us are fearful that we'll get exhausted and burnt out and damaged. We are meant to go and get exhausted and find our strength in God. That's what the battle is all about. Every soldier knows it's about training and training and training. And if you get exhausted, you have to look at your spiritual health. You have to look at your training. You come back and go, how can I endure more? David followed human wisdom versus godly principles. Yes, we are to seek advice, without doubt. Proverbs 11:14, for lack of guidance, the nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Proverbs 15:22, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Of course, not only does it, give us a different perspective, but it's what bonds you to your people. There's nothing but, like Raul was phoning me out, said, Joe, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I go, buddy, I appreciate it. I know you're trying to be humble and stuff. Like, he's like, what should I do in South America? I haven't got a clue, buddy. But I really appreciate you trying to pull me in, everything like that. So, of course, there's great benefit of it from a wisdom point of view and just building relationships. However, if these advisors, no matter how strong their opinion, and a lot of us in this room have strong opinions, no matter their experience, their victories, or their titles do not point you to God or his principles, they will more often be wrong. Opinions too often come from a person's feelings and the heart. That is also where all a person's sin comes from. Mark 7:21, for it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. All these evils come from inside and defile a person. Your opinion can defile someone. And that's all it is your opinion. I don't feel this, I don't feel like nobody's taking my opinion and changing as a result. When did your opinion become so important? The heart is not to be trusted. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? So if you can't even understand your own opinion and where it comes from, how on earth can you trust somebody else's? What David failed to do was inquire of God. He didn't go, hey, God, I need to, check this out. My guys have given me advice. It seems great. What should I do? He failed by either going to the scriptures or God in prayer. He also had other things. He had the Urim and Thummim that he could have used. There were many other ways. This is the same sin as King Saul, his predecessor, fell into, which led his kingdom to be removed and him being killed in battle. 1 Chronicles 10:13. Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted a medium for guidance. And he did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. We better learn from the last generation. We better learn the mistakes. Too many of us are so strongly opinionated and we never quote a single scripture in our conversation. You go, I really feel. To be honest, sometimes I don't really care what you feel. I want to know what God wants me to do. But we're so feelings based. Well, we just need to get together and talk about how we feel about it. No, we need to get together and study the scriptures and see what God would do if he was here right now. So I have 3 points as we look at 3 different characters. Point 1, David, wrong place, wrong time. 2 Samuel 11, verse 1. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, she is Beth Sheba, the daughter of Elam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. So David sent this word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing. Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on the mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it to Uriah. In it, he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot arrows from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, the son of Beth Sheba? Didn't a woman drop an upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died in Hebez? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asked you this, then say to him, moreover, Uriah, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. The messenger sent out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us, came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead. David told the messengers, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as the other. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab. But Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead. She mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. So here we see the progression of sin. David was at home rather than on the battlefield. The ministry is a blessing to keep you faithful. He wandered around aimlessly. He did not fill up his spare time with a purpose. Then he went to an inappropriate place and did an inappropriate sin. He did not deal with his lust. Rather than deal with it as sin and confess it, hey, I've seen this. Go and get Nathan. Hey, I've sinned. I've lusted. He allowed himself to look further into it. Who is this woman? And then bring her to me. Let me indulge. Let me see how beautiful she is. You ever just, looked at Facebook and went, oh, that's a pretty girl. Let me click on her profile. His heart had become so hard that even though he knew it was another man's wife, one of his own mighty men out fighting for him, he pursued his sinful desires. He used his position to persuade this woman to sleep with him. He abused his position and power, using it for selfish pleasure and gain, not for good. David thought he could get away with his sin. He thought his one-nighted pleasure would have no consequences. Thought he'd go, I just slept with her, but no one will know. Maybe I'll bribe a city guard, or maybe he did it in secret. Maybe he had a secret passage. One minute said, it was just one night. I just fell once. He tried to cover up quickly by getting Uriah to sleep with his wife. Oh, she's pregnant. Quick, let's get Uriah, and if they sleep together and then send off to war, and maybe you won't know which month the child is born in, and we can just say it came early. Maybe he would have even gone, well, it was from God. When Uriah didn't, he purposely got Uriah drunk, showing he didn't care who he hurt or who he also made sin. When we're in sin, we hurt people. When I hear people, I'm being discipled, and all they do is hurt. There's sin in the discipler. There's sin in the leader. Then he planned to murder Uriah with a plan that would also get even more innocent people killed. It wasn't just Uriah. The plan was, hey, we'll kill Uriah. I know other people will die with him. He pressurized his general Joab to compromise his conscience. And let me tell you, you need men around you that will stand up against you. I'm not impressed by people pleasers. Well, I just want to please Joab. For goodness sake. You want to please God. The byproduct is I should be happy. You need to stand up. Doesn't matter who's leading you, who's below you, who's to the side you. You need to stand up for righteousness and for God. Then he tried to cover it up quickly by marrying Bathsheba quickly. Well, you know what? Maybe if she comes and marries me, they'll think it's my child. David thought he had gotten away with his sin. Undealt with sin is like falling down a shale mountainside. Don't know if you've ever walked up a mountain and there's a shale, like loose rocks. All you need to do is put one foot on the wrong side and down you go. And with shale, it's not like, hard ground where you can like dig your foot. Shale, you just go and you just can't stop it. The shale is going down before you, at the side of you, it's at the back of you. And if you did stop, it would come over you. I mean, it's a nightmare. There's a hopelessness to it. If David had been open about his sin at any stage, it would have saved hurting so many more people. You go back through the stage, at one stage, that would have saved innocent men being killed. That would have saved Uriah. That would have saved the child. That would have saved. The longer sin is left undealt with, the more damage is done. How is your righteousness? Are you on the road to disaster? I don't mind weakness. I don't mind stupidity. We've all had a laugh at each other when we've done dumb things. My favorite quote is, said to Solomon, well, what were you thinking there? He went, well, I obviously wasn't thinking. We've all had moments like that. All right, that's just life. But how's your righteousness? Are you on the road to disaster? Is there unconfessed sin in your life that you have decided to take the grave with you? I will never speak about this to anybody. You're already lost. I'm in the ministry. No, you are lost. Are you trying to fix your sin yourself instead of confessing and getting help? Well, I just won't drink anymore. I just won't tell anybody, and I just promise to God I won't do it again. Or I made a vow to God, I won't do it. But you don't speak to anyone. And we've all done we've confessed to somebody that really won't ever tell anybody else, and they're down the pecking order, they're not a leader, and I confessed it to so-and-so, and you're like, yeah, well, so-and-so was never going to challenge you, were they? Do you have people to expose sin in your life? Men unlike Joab and more like Prophet than Nathan. I appreciate my shepherding group. I talked about drinking, not drinking alcohol, and I had these heaps normal, they're like 0.5%, and Jesse's like, that's still alcohol, and I said, great, come and get them off me, and then there's a bit of delay, and I took one on Saturday, so I confessed it to him, and we're having a joke about it, and Jesse's like, okay, at the bar, and we found this one beer where there's 0 alcohol in it, but there's an exposing in my life. We get shepherded and we confess our sin together. We go around every Monday night, okay, who wants to go first, who's in a marriage, whatever it is. That's my lifeline, it's their job. What are the most common sins that take people out? Lust, leading to pornography, impurity, lusting after non-Christian women, and adultery. It's no one in the church for me. Maybe it's the other way around for some of you sisters. It's not just brothers that lust, it's sisters too. Self-righteous criticalness, leading to bad relationships, bad attitudes towards authority, leadership, especially your husband. When I have a bad attitude, the only one going to hell is me. Even if that person is in enormous sin. Laziness, covered up by falsely representing the reality of where you or your ministry is at. That's why I ask these questions. I'm like, how you doing? I'm doing great. You did one study this week? Let me define greatness for you. You have to be excellent at asking the right questions to expose people. We're in the Facebook age. We all look happy. How you doing? Great. Fired up. Are you really? Pride, an unwillingness to see your own sin and deal with it radically. You bring something up with people and they're so defensive. So defensive. If people bring something, you have to understand, first of all, it takes courage. First of all, they've been thinking about this a long time, longer than you have. And if they're wrong, I would rather they be wrong and me be humble than them be right and me be proud. So you have to go, help me understand that. Maybe if I don't really get this, maybe Jesse can come and help me. How about, you know, you ask Jesse and Len, and you can come and speak to me because I don't quite see it. But, you know, that welcoming, like, I would rather be righteous than right. Sin that takes people out of the ministry. A love of money and comfort. This is not the highest paying job. Let's just be honest. I feel like I pay my own salary after I give my special and contribution. Yeah, welcome to the club. But that's called living on faith. You know, our great stories, our house being paid off and all that. It's like that's what is preaching material. This is, God is giving us material to preach with. Well, I just feel like I can't go out on this and I can't go on holiday. And holidays are a modern thing. Do you know what I mean? They're a biblical thing in some ways. But the way we view holiday, which is go and watch telly all day, biblical holidays are, hey, let's just focus on God. I think not willing to live a sacrificial life. We had Paul in and preached about where the special went. Did a great heart, moved this Fijian woman. She gave $500 immediately to missions. I've been to Paul and Jack's flat. And when Paul said I slept on the table, I kid you not, the table's about the length of my half square. Now, if you've seen Paul, he must be like 6 foot or something. That means from the base of his back to the top of his chest was on the table. His head was off one side, his legs were off the other, and Paul didn't complain. He said, it's the best night of sleep I've had because there are no bed bugs on there. I wonder why Lee J, who has very strong character, Millie, who has very strong character, Beric, who has very strong character, Jack, who has a very strong character, follow him. It's because of the way he lives. I think ineffectiveness due to pride. Anybody can do the ministry to some degree. If you are ineffective, it's because you don't have a learner's heart. An unlearning heart, a bad marriage, lust, laziness, these are all reflected in your stats. May not be your baptism, maybe your not ability to raise people up. The stats are just the facts. The reality is your life. You know, are you afraid to walk in the light? Something we all have to face, right? John 3:19. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people love darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. Do you hate just looking bad? And it's a real issue for many of you. Are you afraid to have your deeds exposed due to the selfish ambition or fear you will be taken out of the ministry? Do your peers and disciples know you as well as God? That's a good question. Do they really know you? Well, I just confess to God and I tell all my feelings. I'm like, well, you're not going to get much help then when it comes to being challenged on your sin. And you know what it's like? We all need someone to study the Bible with us to call us to a conviction. Are you afraid of the purifying process? 1 John 1:5. This is the message we've heard from him and declared to you. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. If we claim to have fellowship with him yet walk in the darkness, we lie and do not live out the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, purifies us from all sin. If we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. If we claim we have not sinned, we make him out to be a liar and his word is not in us. So unless we are radically open with where we're at, we won't be purified. Unless you're pure, Beatitude says you won't see God. Right. How many times, God, where are you? Why are you not in my ministry? Why are you not performing in my ministry? Maybe he goes, I don't think it's my ministry. It's your ministry. Point 2, Bathsheba. Wrong place, wrong motive. Wrong place, wrong motive. Bathsheba was a woman whom Satan used to bring down 2 spiritual legends. 2. Bathsheba came from a very ambitious family. Her father was Elam, and her grandfather was Anithro, who was a counselor to King David, a man of great renown for his wisdom. We know that in 2 Samuel 23:34. Yet her grandfather's motives were later exposed to be full of selfish ambition. As seen during Absalom's attempt to usurp the throne, he deserted David to Absalom because he went, you know what? I'm going to have more success with Absalom. I believe we can see the same destructive, selfish ambition in Bathsheba. Ask yourself, what was Bathsheba doing bathing in public where all could see? She would have known that she could have been seen by all the people in the palace, as the palace would have been higher than her house. The palace is on a hill. And so she knew that they would have been looking down on her. It was common for people to sit on their roofs at night because it was hot, or even pray. So why was she bathing in full view? Why not in a private chamber? And also, it was getting rid of her uncleanness. That was an intimate thing she did. This was not a quick shower. There were certain parts of her body that she was scrubbing. Why, when called by David, did she not cry out and stop David's advances as the scriptures taught? Deuteronomy 22:22, if a man is found sleeping with another man's wife, both the man who slept with her and the woman must die. You must purge the evil of Israel. If a man happens to meet in a town a virgin pledged to be married and he sleeps with her, you should take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. The young woman, because she was in a town and did not scream for help, and the man, because he was violated another man's wife, you must purge the evil from among you. But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man has done this shall die. She should have been screaming from the rooftops, but she didn't. Why confess her pregnancy just to David? Why not to those who could have helped her spiritually, like her wise grandfather or the prophet Nathan? You don't realize what David has done. Nathan was in town. He wasn't out at war. Why was she willing to marry David straight after a time of mourning? I looked this up. Her time of mourning was only 7 days. Your husband's dead and you get married after 7 days. There's something wrong with that. The only other time we read about any action from Bathsheba is when she went to make sure her son was king. Bathsheba was manipulative. I believe she knew exactly what she was doing. She was full of selfish ambition and all other types of evil practices. James 3:14, but if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you'll find disorder and every evil practice. You know, this is shown in Christians when they get jealous of other Christians. Envious, worried about their position, who will disciple them, their need for constant attention and validation by man. Maybe there was another deeper reason that Uriah the Hittite did not want to go home to her. You know, sometimes we say a truth, but there's like 3 or 4 angles to a truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, you know, I didn't go out evangelizing because I missed the bus. But also, I also didn't want to go out evangelizing. You know what I mean? Like, there's multiple things. Maybe Uriah married a woman he thought was beautiful, from a good family, and he thought was spiritual. It may even been an arranged marriage. I mean, here's a mighty man. But maybe you found out she was only attracted to him because he was someone great. Did she marry him for his position and his power? Maybe even his house. Maybe it was his house. Maybe Uriah found out she was a totally different person in reality, far from spiritual. Maybe he was not attracted to her emotionally, spiritually, and therefore sexually. Ask yourself why they did not have a child when she could so easily conceive after just one time with David. Maybe Uriah was thinking these scriptures when he chose to sleep in the doorway of the palace rather than go home. Proverbs 21:9, better to live in the corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. Maybe it's better for me just to sleep outside the palace than go home. Is it just possible that it was always Bathsheba's plan to use her beauty to sleep her way to the top? How's your marriage? Does your husband love to come home to you, wives? Because you're sweet, submissive, kind, uncritical, a safe and comforting place spiritually for him? Or would your husband rather be with the boys out on the mission field? And whose fault is that really? Why are you still single, sisters? Spiritually attractive women attract spiritual men. Many of the men that are married in this room had their quirks. I love Megan's comment. I'm in love, she said to Ali, my daughter. And it's with Solomon. But while Solomon may have come behind in that first lot of evangelists, he's spiritual. Come on. He is spiritual. I even remember a time when he made this clanging mistake. I can't remember it was. I looked at Kerry and went, she said, well, at least he did something. He didn't just sit there and suck his thumb. It may be the wrong thing, but at least he led. I went, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. She's always liked you, Solomon. Amen. You know, critical, over-opinionated, mean women remain single. That's a fact. Do you consider yourself better than the brothers or your husband? If you did consider your husband or brothers better than you, surely you would have no problem with taking advice or following. Philippians 2:3 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Do the brothers or your husband feel truly valued by you? Or is all they hear about how undervalued you feel? Have you forgotten that God made woman for man, not the other way around? Yeah. Are you self-consumed or consumed with being the brother's helper? A wife has the power to make the man or destroy him. Proverbs 14:1, the wise woman builds a house, but with her own hands, the foolish one tears her down. I think there is no better example of this in our world sector than Liz. Yeah. Come on, Liz. Who came out of the Young Prophets group, training for women's ministry leader. I said, if you date, marry Jesse, you'll have to come out of that group. Your peer group will change. That means you won't be as close to Jenna and as Millie and people like that, etc. And yet now she disciples them. Come on. Come on, Liz. Now Jesse is going to lead Hong Kong. The boy from Maroubra takes on the Cantonese. It's interesting that we laugh, because when something spiritual happens, that's what you do, isn't it? It's like that's totally from God. Yeah. God makes the man, but also the woman makes the man. And yes, Liz is pretty awesome. However, what it really shows you is that if you're a great wife, you can shine the rough diamond, because Jesse's flat awesome too. Yeah. Yes. Point 3, Uriah. Right place, right time. Uriah, his name in Hebrew means Yahweh is my light, or flame of God. I like flame of God. I'm like, man, what about you? I'm the flame of God, man. You better, I am burning. Uriah was a Hittite. There's a reason he's Uriah the Hittite. He was a convert to Judaism who had such a great reputation that he was allowed to marry the granddaughter of the great advisor to King David. He was also counted amongst David's mighty men and allowed to live close to David's palace. That means David, like, I want this guy protects me in a fight. I want this guy here. I trust him. But he was a Hittite. He was the enemy. This guy had proved himself unbelievably. His name was most probably given to him to represent his relationship with God, a man consumed with pleasing God. His reputation for integrity and honesty was shown in the fact that David gave him the letter to give to Joab, his commander, that contained the plot to kill Uriah the Hittite, and he knew he wouldn't open it. Wow. There was not an ounce of criticalness or contempt towards King David or his dubious commander Joab. And Joab was a dubious guy. As he spoke about them, he called them my commander, Joab, and my lord. Not the. He understood their authority and did not treat them as equals. You know, Uriah loved to be out in the battle. He had no problem being told to go to the front line and put himself in danger, even if it meant dying. I appreciate these people on the mission field. It's refreshing to hear back. You know, and they're going, you know, we're so proud of you, you know, sacrificing, selling a cookie. No, it's all right. We'll sell some more cookies for you. That's all right. It's like, you go out there and deal with the bed bugs. We'll sell the cookies. Okay. But that's what the mission field is about. His heart was in the battle, not into pleasure, as seen by him not going home to sleep with his wife and wanting to eagerly be with his men on the front line. And I thought about this. He got drunk. Now, if anybody's been a non-Christian got drunk, that's the time you think about sex the most. So there was temptation there. This guy just wasn't into pleasure. He was loyal to God, not man. As a Hittite fighting for God and the kingdom of Israel, he would at times have had to fight against the Hittites. There was no sentimentality in this man. That's my uncle over there. That's my grandson over there. He's like, no sentimentality. Some of us are still so sentimental to the lost or the ICOC or whoever it is. Uriah did not just become a soldier in Israel, but he excelled to become one of David's 37 mighty elite warriors, men of war. That meant he had demonstrated special achievements in other previous battles. He was a make-it-happen, brave type guy. You know, Uriah was an example of any Christian can imitate. Everywhere he was and everything he did it for the glory of God, just as his name meant. In his life on the battlefield, in his relationships to his leaders, they were all characterized by godly principles. 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. I think that's what's missing in so many of us. You go, this is so hard for me. And you're just not seeing the glory it brings God. It is the fact that we suffer with joy, sacrifice with joy, that people go, I don't get you. Yeah, I know, because you don't get God. Uriah died a hero, righteous before God. By always being in the front line of battle, he may have died early. But what is that compared to a glorious life with God in eternity? I mean, are we really going to sit around and go, what age did you die? 67. Wow. I was a bit young, I died at 90. We're not going to be talking like that. In dying in battle, he saved himself the shame of learning his wife and king were adulterous behind his back. He saved himself from a future life of pain and a bad marriage. He died a hero, while for Bathsheba and David, the problems were only just beginning. Will you die a saved hero? With all that is going on, that is the question you need to ask yourself. You're all young. Is your character in its present state able to get you to heaven, or do you need to radically change? That's the question. In that tough time when you are out on your own, or if the movement falls apart again, will you carry on? Do you value the praise of God at the expense of the praise of men? I can tell you every sin that I've ever confessed to any man 20 years ago, 10 years ago, they have forgotten. They don't keep a list of my sins. The only thing that matters is, can I remember the pain of embarrassment of confessing it, and that helped purify my soul? Are you consumed and eager to do battle for God every day of your life? Or is selfish ambition eating away at your soul? What about me? Do you fear losing your possession and so will sin to keep it? Are you trying to manipulate your situation and those around you, or eagerly submitting your heart and life to God and His will? Go anywhere, anytime, do anything. Does every ounce of your soul just desire to bring glory to God? You know, the fall of a king. I love having great Bible studies. I pray you're having great Bible studies. You find out so much when you try and apply it to yourself. David, wrong place, wrong time. Had to go through my whole life, my schedule hour by hour. Where am I? Why am I there? Is it the right place? Beth Sheba, wrong place, wrong motive. Had to check my motives. What am I saying and why am I saying it? Uriah, right place, right time. There is nothing better than a week where you end up exhausted because you have studied the Bible with so many people. It's great just to be back in city and having that opportunity. Standing with people like one after the other. Saturday, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. Hey, bring this person, let's go find some more people. You're getting with, Kerry's friends that she's reaching out. Let's get them, go to dinner, let's study the Bible. That's the joy of life. You go, aren't you over it at your age? No. I'm only just beginning. All that matters is dying saved by remaining righteous every day of your life. That is the only thing that matters. Is it time for you to open up to save your soul? Do not delay and therefore bring the judgment of God on yourself. With all the recent events, take warning. Take good warning. You may be in love with God in your quiet times, but if you don't fear Him, you will fall into sin. So let's make sure that you're not reading this next week, next year, 10 years' time, and saying, I wish I had taken more note. Because the next lesson I'm going to do is the rise of the prophet. But like sin, light and darkness, we need to look at the sin in the ministry and then the light. But I think a lot of you have got some sober conversations to have, sometimes with me and Kerry and other people. But we've got to take this in our stride and learn and change. Because honestly, there's a lot to grow in, and that's the lesson. Amen.
To hear more from Dr. Joe Willis, check out his 2 books on Amazon, The Art of Spiritual Warfare, Practicals for Becoming a Prayer Warrior, and Money is the Answer for Everything. Click the links in the description below. Also, for more life-changing lessons, subscribe to his YouTube channel, Dr. Joe Willis.